A morning meditation, lighting a candle for intention, daily gratitude practice, deep breathing exercises, saying affirmations to yourself in the morning, mindful tea or drinking coffee, space cleaning, a walk in nature, listening to music in the morning. What do all of these things have in common? Well, the answer is whether you think about it like this or not, these are rituals. Welcome to Bright Lights Beyond.
Synchronicities. Lexie, I love that. You were literally Dr. Seuss.
Wait, what is it? One fish, two fish? Red fish, blue fish?
There you go. As Lexie so eloquently put it, today we're going to be talking all things runes and rituals. So this is going to be a really fun one. But before we dive deep into exactly what is a rune, what is a ritual, what do these things have in common with synchronicities, I wanted to thank everyone for listening. We've gotten such great feedback on the last episode, and it was such a pleasure getting to interview Peyton. So we really want to say a big shout out to him for being our first interview of this season. So that was amazing. I just want to take a moment to remind everyone to support us, follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, like our posts, engage with our content, listen on Spotify, give us a rating on Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff. And so we're hitting the mid-season point, and I feel like we're really in our stride right now. And I wanted to take a moment to ask you, Lexie, how do you feel? We're halfway through. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. I can officially add podcast co-host to my resume, so that's exciting. But Lexie, what are your thoughts so far?
I just gotta say that this has just been so much fun, and this season has been going by kind of fast. Like, I feel like I blink and it's just 2 weeks later. I've been really enjoying kind of looking at things through the lens of synchronicity and through, like, I guess, Carl Jung's, like, whole philosophy on life of, like, interconnecting the consciousness with our subconscious and kind of, like, looking deeper into things. I feel like it really adds to the entire podcast concept of like near death experience in the sense that like we're looking for something beyond what we're seeing and like what is the meaning of kind of everything. And I appreciate all the cultural aspects that we add in and just getting your point of view. And I just gotta say, like, you are killing it, and I am so happy to be doing this with you, and I'm so glad that we're here together, and it's all synchronous in a way, you know what I mean?
It definitely is so synchronous. And I love that I'm here for this season. And like you said, like I literally have a lens of synchronicity in the way I look at the world now. I can't tell you how many times someone has said something like, oh, this happened the other day or whatever. And I'm like, that's a synchronicity. That's a synchronicity. This is a synchronicity. It's crazy how knowledge is power. And now that we know about synchronicities, I'm seeing them what feels like all the time. And like you said, the cultural elements, I feel like I've just learned so much from doing this research. And I can't wait to see what other topics we're going to dive into. I also want to take a moment too to also thank the listeners, any listeners who responded to our questions on our website the other week. And I'm so excited to dive into all things runes and rituals. Lexie, can you get us started off, kind of the introduction to the very concept?
Absolutely. It would be my honor. Kind of along the lines of what you were saying about cultural, I guess, aspects and learning about that. I think what's so cool about this podcast is that we're all learning together. So we may not have all the answers, but I think it's really cool when we both bring up stuff that maybe I didn't know, you didn't know, and our listeners didn't know. And then they can go from there and learn a lot more. This week, like you said, we're going to be talking about runes and rituals. And so first, let me give you a little bit of an overview about what runes are and kind of the history of them. So today I kind of looked into the Norse mythology on the origins of runes. Let's first start, I guess, with the name or the word rune. And that comes from the word runo, which is a derivative of the Proto-Norse, Proto-Germanic language. And that word means several different things: letter, secret, mystery, a whisper. And that kind of embodies like what runes are. So not only from the word derivative, let's take it back to, I guess, the cultural aspect of Norse mythology. That's kind of where runes, I guess, in the sense that we're talking about now, and what the Western world views of what a rune is and kind of where they come from. So before we get into like what a rune actually is, it's said that runes were developed and popularized in Germanic tribes and Viking cultures of Scandinavia, so like Denmark, northern Germany, southern Sweden, think that region of the world. And it's said that they date back to, and get this, you guys, 150 AD. That is old as frick, you guys. Like, think of the oldest thing, right? And then, like, think about the Middle Ages, older than that. Think about the Dark Ages, older than that. Literally old. So they say that ruins date back all the way 150 AD. So, where did these tribes get runes from? Well, it said in Norse mythology that there's 9 realms. These 9 realms are all held together on something they call the Tree of Worlds. And this Tree of Worlds is said to grow out of the Well of Erd, which is like a spring of life, kind of like this water. Think about it like the water of knowing, right? They say that like the water knows the past, the present, and everything. It's like full of wisdom. And the Norse god Odin was hung upside down from a tree for 9 days and 9 nights. And while he was hanging from this tree, he discovered rune stones. He picked them up, and just from that simple act of grabbing them, he was able to earn his life back, and he was cut from the tree. And that's how they say runes are brought to, I guess, like these tribes. In a lot of different cultures, gods are kind of like the people who invent the languages. So think of it like that. This is like a language. What I also learned about looking into runes, it's not just symbols. These runes are actually arranged into ways that make an alphabet. And the alphabet is called the Futhark. And there are 3 different types of alphabets within this rune language, this Germanic, I guess, Anglo-Saxon, Norse, Viking language, right? And it said that these runes are letters, but they're also symbols, and they're also connected to gods and elements. So every single one of these runes has an element that is, I guess, like universal, if that makes sense. Even though it can mean a letter, it can mean a god, it can mean all these different things. That's why these symbols are so, I guess, universal and important. Runes were carved into different objects, leathers, stones, wood, and the tribes that did these carvings really believed that every single one of these items that they carved the runes into, it was infused with the power and the intention that was set. So that's kind of like, I guess, a crash course on like what runes really are. And why they're important, why we're talking about them right now, is because runes are used in a lot of different, I guess, rituals and practices. One of them being divination. And divination, like runology, to put simply, is like the practice of seeking the future or the unknowing by supernatural means. So Vikings, pagans, the Anglo-Saxon, these Germanic tribes would use these runes, carve them into little stones, and they would ask gods questions. So they would take these stones and shake them and throw them. And it wasn't just the way that they landed, it was also the position they would land in. If it was sideways, it was turned upside down. That all added to the overall message. Each one of these symbols represented, strength, protection, wealth, a transformation. And by looking at these stones, the practitioners who were doing them, they would gain a better insight into their future, into their past, and maybe seek guidance or offer advice from whatever the stones were telling them. And the practice of divination and runology is considered a ritual. And a ritual is just a set of actions, ceremonies, rites performed in a prescribed manner, often with symbolic significance, typically within religious, spiritual, or cultural contexts. And the purpose that these rituals serve can be anything from marking of time, an important event, expressing devotion or reverence, invoking spiritual ties, fostering communities, and it reinforces the identities and values, worldviews within your community and tradition. So to put it simply, ruins and their ancient origins and their symbolic meanings tap into our subconscious mind and in our human consciousness. And each symbol on the ruin represents a universal theme, a primal energy, just like rituals that also incorporate symbols and gestures that are speaking to the collective consciousness and also eliciting emotions and spirituality from within. When ruins and rituals are used in like divination or ceremonies, they can serve as an invokement of a synchronous experience. So drawing from a particular ruin or going into performing a specific ritual might spark an internal and external event, an insight, give you some kind of collective consciousness, and then therefore giving you some type of synchronicity. They both lead to archetypal energies, which basically just means universal patterns. And we all know from learning about Carl Jung that universal patterns are imperative to synchronicities, combining the unconscious to the conscious awareness. So, from that very long-winded explanation of both runes and rituals, how do our intentions play into what we receive, and how can we better use it to help serve our purposes?
Good question, Lexi. And thankfully, I have some answers. So, the intentions that we have when we're working with these runes, whether it's in the ritualistic sense or we're performing a ritual that doesn't involve runes, either way, the symbols themselves carry inherent meanings like what Lexi outlined for us. Like when they're carved in these materials, they have the power of that symbol, but it's the intention of the practitioner that really activates that power. Without that intention, they might as well just be, words on a paper that aren't there to serve much of a purpose. It's when you have that intention that they really come to life, is what I've understood from the research. So, for example, let's say you're casting a rune for guidance, but you don't have a clear intention on either what you want guidance on or you're very vague with it. If you don't have that intention, you might yield results that aren't really answering, any questions that you have because you didn't ask those questions or you didn't have those questions in mind when you were casting that rune. Whereas casting with a focused intention or a focused question can lead to those synchronistic revelations that we've been talking about the entire season, really. In my research, I was actually reading about kind of a real world example of this in play. So, let's say following along with the example I just gave, you are practicing with the rune on Suze, which is, divine communication and wisdom. You have that intention of, I want clear communication, let's say with a toxic partner. We've all been there. So, maybe if you don't have that intention, you don't see those synchronicities. But let's say you do have that intention, you are practicing with the rune, and then all of a sudden you're driving down a street you take every day with no stop signs, right? And all of a sudden the very next day they built a stop sign and you're like, oh, I'm taking that to mean I need to stop communicating with that partner. And I feel like because you were practicing with the rune with that intention that led to that synchronicity, it all came full circle and you were able to kind of pick up on that. Whereas without that intention, you might not have.
And to bring it back to just like in the religious aspects of rituals, you think about it like this. You have to set intentions with a lot of different things, runes, rituals. For example, Lent. We grew up Catholic, so I feel like when we're talking about religious experience, a lot of it is pulled from, like, I guess the religion that you grow up in. And for Lent, you're always told to give up something that you really enjoy. The intention behind isn't just like, hey, can I go 40 days without drinking Coke? The intention is, okay, so Jesus suffered for 40 days in the desert. I will suffer in some small way, give up some comfort that I have, drinking Coke for 40 days. And the intention is to, every time I'm like, oh, I've had a great day, let me reach for a Coke, I go, you know what? I am going to sacrifice for the sacrifices that were given to me in that way. You know what I mean? A lot of it has to do with intention, especially when it comes to rituals and ruins, for sure.
Well, I feel like, it can go the totally opposite way. Like when you have also bad intentions. I mean, how many like horror movies have we seen where they're like playing with, a Ouija board, which isn't a rune or a ritual, but, it comes to mind as an example of like when you have bad intentions or you're not clear on your intentions. That's a really big trope in horror movies. When you're not very clear on your intentions, maybe those can be misconstrued in a way that, I'm not saying you're going to get possessed.
Oh my gosh, that's like my literal biggest fear come to life.
I think you're good. I think they don't want you. No, but like, you need to be clear on your intention. You need to be clear on what you're putting out into the world because it's going to match your energy. And bringing it back to the synchronicity of it all and just tying it into, again, the theme of our season. I mean, astrology, tarot, runes, rituals, any other form of divination is at its core synchronicity in action. For tarot, like how many times have your tarot reader pulled a card and you're like, whoa, that's a synchronicity. That's exactly what I'm feeling in life. All forms of divination operate on the principle of synchronicity itself, where external events seemingly align with our internal inquiries. Like you were saying, Lexi, the external and the internal. In astrology, the positions of the stars and the planets coincide often with significant life events or who we turn out to be, our character traits. In tarot, the cards drawn reflect our subconscious energy or what we need in that moment. With runes, the symbols that are cast reflect aspects of our own journeys. Each practice kind of taps into the synchronistic flow of the universe, revealing insights that can resonate with whoever is seeking it, their own intentions. So I think intentions play a really big part of it. And kind of talking more a little bit about tarot and using that as an example, because I think it's a really great example of synchronicity in action and intentions. I mean, performing a tarot card reading can be accompanied by a ritual to enhance those moments of synchronicity. Like you talked about the very beginning of the episode, Lexie, lighting candles, cleansing the space, and focusing on that question or that intention almost infuses the reading with a heightened sense of energy. And when those cards are drawn and interpreted, synchronicities may manifest in the form of, a sudden realization, an external validation, a serendipitous event that mirrors the insights that you got from that reading.
I think that that was perfect. And one word I want to kind of touch on was validation. It's so true. You can have every intention in the world, but if you don't know how to, I guess, validate the synchronicities that you're feeling or seeing, it can be really hard. And these validation and this guidance is kind of what pulls you from just like thinking that it's weird into like knowing like, oh, this was meant for me. For example, like if you are worried about money and you're stressed and you go get a tarot card and you pull the 9 of Cups, right? You're like, wow, abundance is coming. Maybe my job will be fruitful, or I'll get a new job, or I'm going to be coming into money. Things like that. You have to know how to validate what you're seeing. Some ways you can do that, especially within rituals, is confirming your intuition. If you have a feeling that that is like what it's meant for you, like you were saying about the stop sign, you have to say, you know what, that is actually what it means to me. I feel it inside, and that is the truth. You have to confirm it. You have to reinforce the guidance that you're getting from the universe. That means like, thank you, spirit guides. Thank you, God. Thank you, whoever put these blessings into my life, because you have to like give thanks, or I guess validate and acknowledge those people that are working, above you. An expansion of meaning. So like the stop sign, like you were saying again, like it didn't just mean stop on the road. It means like stop. Think about how you're talking to people. Think about different things. Like I said, affirming the spiritual connection, and then it encourages you and supports you to look deeper into different things. All of these can be remaining open in our lives, and it doesn't have to be set, but these are just some good ways to, I guess, start to like really think about it and validate what you're feeling and the synchronicities that you're seeing. There's a book written by actually one of Carl Jung's colleagues. It's called On Divination and Synchronicity by Mary Louise von Franz. And basically this book dives into the contrasting versions of like Western scientific philosophy and I guess religion in that sense, and then like Eastern or more pagan beliefs like tarot card reading, rune casting, or dice rolling. And it's a series and lectures from Carl Jung and just personal stories from different people. And it's a really interesting look, I guess, into kind of the contrasting beliefs, but at the end of it all, the overarching theme and just kind of what she wanted to look into specifically with divination and synchronicity is that there is so many connections between science, different cultures, different energies, religions even, that all of it is connected. And the interconnectedness of the ruins, the rituals, the practices, the religion, like I said, Lent, you know what I mean? Different things in life, it's all connected. And all of them are there to help us kind of get guided or seek like a higher, I guess, like purpose in life. And I found that that was really cool that, first of all, there's even a book that connects divination, which, and I know that's a word that maybe people are like, what is divination? You guys stop. But like, it really is just, I guess, asking for guidance and like future telling, which maybe isn't everyone's thing, but at the same time, like, what are prayers if not asking for future help or guidance or aid? You just have to kind of deconstruct, I guess, what we've all been taught in that way. But yeah, that's super cool in my opinion.
No, I think it's very cool. And it goes back to how we started the episode. Like rituals aren't, always having an altar and your crystals and doing these very specific practices. They can be. And when they are, that's beautiful. But even the simple rituals of everyday life are beautiful in their own ways. And whether we want to admit it or not, we all have little rituals. Brushing your teeth, thinking about your day is a ritual. So I love that it's, this isn't tied down to one religion, one way of thought, one country, one group of people. It's really a universal theme. And I think that's also something that we can agree has been another theme across the season. Like synchronicities are throughout time and space, culture and religion and different kinds of people.
I love that. And I think like looking into runes and rituals and just, I guess, like this aspect, it just gives you one way that people have been doing this since, freaking dinosaurs were on the earth. Not really, but like, you know what I mean? Like for the longest time.
Lexie, you just gave us such good tips on kind of identifying and understanding synchronicities. So I think our listeners are are ready to go into the next stage, which is inviting synchronicities through practice. So I have just a few tips for you guys. You'll have to let us know if you find more instances of synchronicity in your lives if you do implement these tips. But one of them is just having an intention. Start your morning with a specific intention, whether it's to seek guidance, clarity, or manifesting a goal, working towards that goal. Before, performing your daily rituals or casting a rune, if that's your vibe, articulate your intention clearly, focusing on what you aim to achieve or learn. And don't be afraid to write this intention down, speak it out loud, or just say it in your mind. My next tip is to maintain awareness, cultivate mindness throughout your day, staying attuned to the signs, symbols, and subtle shifts in energy that Lexie was just talking about, because you can't spot these synchronicities if your mind isn't open and willing to accept them. So be observant of your surroundings, notice patterns, be slow in your movements. And, when you're speeding to work or speeding to get home and make dinner, maybe stop and just look around, not while you're driving, while you're at the stop sign that we talked about. And then my next one is just to interpret those synchronistic events like Lexie was talking about. When you interpret them, keep a journal, keep a synchronicity journal. And Lexie, I feel like you and I need to start that. To document these synchronicities as they occur, reflect on their possible meanings. Maybe you have 2 or 3 that it could be. And after a while, you look back, you're like, oh, it was definitely my grandma communicating to me, or my sign to stop texting my ex. I don't know. Consider how these synchronicities are aligning with your intentions or offering guidance in navigating challenges and opportunities.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. What's funny is actually, I guess I hadn't really thought about this, but I was telling my friend about this. Every morning I wake up, I open my phone up and I'm like, hey Siri, shuffle a song. And whatever song she decides to play for me, I get up and I'm like, this is the theme of my day. Sometimes it's like a banger, like it's Nicki Minaj or like whatever. Sometimes it is my musicals. And I'm like, this is going to be a somber day. But every day that's like a little ritual that I have and I find intention in it. You know what I mean? Like I really do. And I, for one, would love to know what rituals you guys have in your life. So definitely answer the question that I'm going to put on our website because that's where it's going to be. But I would love to know about rituals that you have. And also if you guys have ever used rune stones, because it just so happens that I have a little baggie here of rune stones. And Andie, I'm going to cast some runes for you.
I feel I'm like tingling already.
Right? I'm like, do you have an intention?
My intention is, what should I watch when I eat dinner? Love is Blind or Vanderpump Rules?
Andie, the rune stones just told me that you'll have to find out in the next episode. And remember, guys, live life beyond.